tensed up after the age of 30. This muscle is very small and unnoticeable, but the quality of your life literally depends on it. Bend your fingers. Problems with this muscle can cause a protruding belly, the internal organs to sag, painful periods, chronic fatigue, constipation, pelvic varicose veins, swelling in the legs, headaches, accelerated aging, and even depression and impaired cerebral circulation. And that's just part of the list, but the scariest thing is that people don't even realize these problems are connected to this muscle. My name is Dr. Alice, and today in this video, I will reveal all the secrets of the puborectalis muscle. I'll explain how this muscle causes problems in the body, and most importantly, I'll tell you how to fix them. Let's start by figuring out where the puborectalis muscle is located. The puborectalis muscle is a muscle that forms the pelvic floor. There are many muscles here, and the puborectalis is the one that plays a key role. If you look, it attaches to the pubic symphysis, and then it literally wraps around the rectum from all sides. And when it contracts, it pulls the rectum toward the pubic symphysis. As a result, when this muscle tightens, it literally starts pulling the rectum toward itself. And this acts almost like a biomechanical valve that blocks the act of defecation, which leads to constipation. And here's an interesting fact. The puborectalis muscle is controlled by a center in the brainstem. The thing is, there's a center in the brainstem that's responsible for stress, and for fear, and then further down through the spinal cord. And then, through the pudendal nerve, this muscle receives its innervation. And when a signal comes from the brain, when any anxiety arises, any worry, any stress, it comes from the brainstem. The signal travels down the spinal cord to the pudendal nerve, and this muscle starts to spasm. This happens when there's an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system, when our nervous system is in a state of stress mobilization. As a result, the muscles tense up, and the nerves responsible for relaxation, recovery, and improved digestion, they just shut down at that moment. They don't work. And this is clearly seen in animals when there's a fight or flight response or the freeze stage. These are three different types of reactions from our nervous system to some kind of stimulus. If you observe animals, it's exactly this puborectalis muscle. And basically the coccyx and sacrum, this is the area that goes into spasm. As a result, the animal might either defecate involuntarily or, on the contrary, develop constipation, just like people do. That's why, friends, chronic stress equals chronic tension and spasms of the puborectalis muscle. Friends, the next problem is that a spasm in this muscle blocks the venous and lymphatic vessels. Because venous plexuses pass through this muscle, and when this muscle tenses up, it leads to venous congestion in the pelvis, and the legs can also start to swell. In other words, you get heavy pelvis syndrome, varicose veins, leg swelling, and even hemorrhoids. And it can also compress the nerves that branch out from the sacrum. Nerves branch out from there, which innervate this area, and when this muscle is in spasm, the nerves will also get pinched. All of this can lead to pelvic pain, problems, and disorders in the sexual sphere, anorgasmia, and impotence. The next thing this small muscle affects is intra-abdominal pressure. That is, it affects both intrathoracic and intra-abdominal pressure. The thing is, our body has a system of diaphragms. And when we inhale, the breathing wave should easily pass through our body, meaning that our thoraco-abdominal diaphragm is engaged, the belly starts to drop down and expand, and then the pelvic floor begins to widen. Now imagine that this muscle is tense. It's essentially a pelvic lock, so the pelvis doesn't breathe. In this case, the breath from above starts pushing all the internal organs downward, but there's a lock here, creating strong resistance. As a result, intra-abdominal pressure increases, and intrathoracic pressure also rises. What does this lead to? It leads to a reduced blood flow to the pelvic area. Of course, if everything here is compressed and the pressure in the abdominal cavity is increased, then blood flow to these organs will also worsen in this area. And because intrathoracic pressure will also increase. There may even be a worsening of venous outflow from the skull, which can lead to headaches and ringing in the ears. You might wonder, what does the head have to do with the puborectalis muscle? But through this cascade of reactions, considering that everything in the body is interconnected, the tension becomes chronic. In this area, it can lead to throbbing in the temples, headaches, and noise. And overall, this can even lead to impaired cerebral circulation. Next, this muscle acts as a conductor of emotional charges. I've already mentioned that this muscle is connected to the brainstem, and of course, it's also linked to psychosomatics. All of these emotional charges, such as humiliation, shame, fear, these always lead to tension in this muscle. And this creates a kind of muscular emotional ring where this muscle tenses up in response to any self-preservation instincts. And all of this, of course, leads to depression and a decrease in energy levels. Because if we look at it again from the perspective of alternative medicine, the central energy channel passes through our pelvis. And so, from the point of view of neurophysiology or alternative medicine, this always leads to a decrease in energy levels, the onset of depression, and a drop in libido. And overall, a person just ends up relying on antidepressants instead of working through things calmly. The next reason is that the puborectalis muscle affects our posture and youthfulness. How exactly? Just take a look at the pelvis. So, when this muscle is tense, it causes the pelvis to rotate backward, which straightens the lower back. This means a person's back becomes straighter, but at the same time, their head moves forward, resulting in that elderly posture, head forward, shoulders forward, and the lower back becomes straighter. All of this is connected to chronic tension in this muscle. That's why an elderly posture and looking older than your age can also be related to tension in this muscle. This is often noticeable in older people. The next muscle, the puborectalis, affects hormonal balance. When this muscle is relaxed, the parasympathetic nervous system dominates, which is responsible for the recovery and health of our body. This muscle is where the venous plexuses pass through. If this muscle is relaxed, it improves venous outflow through these Santorini plexuses from the prostate and the uterus, which increases testosterone and estrogen levels. And on the other hand, if this muscle is tense, it blocks venous outflow from, for example, our scrotum, from the testicles, or from the ovaries. And this in turn disrupts the hormonal balance of male and female hormones. And finally, the puborectalis muscle can affect the level of intoxication in the body. How does this happen? When this muscle is tense, defecation is disrupted accordingly. And various toxic substances such as ammonia, bilirubin, indole, they can simply be reabsorbed through the mucous membrane, enter the bloodstream, and poison the body. And that's exactly what chronic fatigue is. As a result of tension in this muscle, it may be related to the fact that there is intoxication in the body. Due to chronic constipation and the absorption of toxic substances, this can even lead to toxic brain syndrome. So tell me, after all these points we've discussed, and now that you know how this muscle affects everything, what exactly needs to be done to relax it? Now I'll show you the most effective exercises to relax this puborectalis muscle. And if you want to look 5 years younger, tighten your face, and tone your body, then I invite you to join my rejuvenation course, where I share highly effective techniques. Description. So, let's move on to the exercise. You can do this on the floor. I did it on the couch. So I'm just going to get up on the couch. Watch this. The main goal here is that we need to stretch the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor should be higher than your knees. That is, your anus should be higher than your knees. And this already stretches your entire pelvic floor. So, if you just squat down like this and spread your legs to the sides, you'll feel a stretch. Right here. First, relax your pelvis. Completely relax your pelvis. And in this position, start to just pull your rectum upward without tensing your glutes or your abs. So at first, we're just training. It's like we're starting to pull the rectum inward. Feel this process, how the rectum slowly starts to draw inward. This is exactly what happens when you do this technique. Just lift the rectum up, lower the rectum down, and relax. Don't tense your abs or your legs. So we're only focusing on the rectum and the muscles around it. Mentally focus on this area, and then start pulling the rectum upward. Relax as you exhale. Pull it upward. And relax. Repeat this for several cycles. So this is the first technique, where you practice becoming aware of the muscles around the rectum. And this technique specifically helps activate the puborectalis muscle. Okay, that's the first exercise. The second exercise. Now we're going to breathe into the pelvic floor. In other words, try to let the wave reach all the way to the pelvic floor. And feel that the pelvic floor is like a hammock or a sail that inflates. Take a breath in and notice how you start to feel a kind of expanding sensation here. You feel that expanding effect. At this moment, all the muscles are stretching. From this feeling of expansion, start tensing your entire pelvic floor. You've inflated the pelvic floor, hold your breath, and start tensing all the muscles there. Tense, 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 tense. Hold for 5 seconds while inhaling, then release all the tension. Do you feel how warmth starts to appear? It starts to feel freer, lighter. And again, Take a breath and inflate the pelvic floor. And tense, tense, tense it, then relax. And that's how you go through the phases. Tension on the inhale and relaxation. You can do it this way too. Do 5 to 10 phases, and you'll feel the relaxation start here. And then you just do this kind of stretch. So, whenever you're lying in the butterfly pose or spreading your legs, you'll feel that the muscles here are stretching too. Your goal is to release the tension that is built up from physical or psycho-emotional stress. We're relaxing this area, and gradually, you'll start to feel that it gets easier here. And, as I said, this will affect many physiological processes in your body. After that, you can lie down and do the next technique. To work on your pelvis, lift your legs, grab them, and start spreading them apart. So what are you doing? You feel how the area here, the pelvic region, starts to stretch right here. This also affects all the pelvic muscles, including the puborectalis muscle. So just grab and do this kind of stretch. You can move your legs like this. Stretch, then relax. And spread them apart. Just grab and spread them. And feel how the pelvic floor is stretching. Now, the third technique. You can do more Kegels. We simply lift the pelvis while inhaling. And tension. We pull the rectum towards us. So breathe in, inhale, and we begin to pull the rectum and pelvic floor inward. Hold it like this for 5 seconds and relax. And here is a complex of exercises on how to work out the pelvic floor. So here you can also do the butterfly stretch. Stretch your legs out. Pull them towards you as well. This is to stimulate lymphatic drainage. This last exercise is needed to enhance venous outflow from your pelvis. So, that's the whole set of exercises. If you do these techniques regularly, you'll notice that even I just did them with you right now, I can feel how it's become easier for me here. That heavy pelvis feeling goes away, and you feel lightness, energy, and warmth. That means the processes have started working. All of this affects your vascular system, your hormonal system, your musculofacial system, and your nervous system. You can get so many benefits just by doing these techniques. I honestly can't imagine anything better than working with the puborectalis muscle if you want fast results. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't lose it. This was Dr. Alice with you. See you next time.